So here is the next article is here. Okay. So this article basically we are covering the current affairs section is Sisha Hills and Biosphere Reserve, and in the environment, basically in the environment sub theme is Sisha Hills and Biosphere Reserve. So rare insect are cited in Sisha Hills, and why it is important in terms of like black preacher or black ground skimmer is the name of that one is black ground skimmer. That has to be the another name is black ground skimmer. Such the new species is to be found in the many species has to be found in eastern and western Ghat. But why the section is important? Because is the first time the species has been sighted the first time in the Sisha Hills range, and Sisha Hills range is where is located. It is in the Andhra Pradesh, which has mentioned like a Tirupati photographer has clicked black preacher, a dragonfly species recently. Okay. So because in the such kind of a species earlier it has been asked in the prelims exam. Okay. So here is black preacher or black ground skimmer, which other name is Diplacodes lefrivili, a species of dragonfly which was sighted the first time in the Sisha Hills range recently. It belongs to the phylum Orthopoda, class Insecta and order Ordinata, which is not mandatory because you are not going to appear in the MBBS exam, right? You are going to appear in the civil service exam, so do not try to focus on the technical name. So we must also aware which section is relevant, which section is not relevant. Not in The Hindu, in Indian Express, Live Mint, or we can say like PIB. Not all the section is very important, right? So do not try to follow like all the section is will ask in the examination. So make sure that is the question has been asked earlier. If you are cramming the word like this insect is belong to phylum Orthopoda or class Insecta or Ordonata, make sure that is the question has to be asked earlier in your exam by UPSC or prelim section or main section. Main section, no question has been asked earlier. And if you talk about the prelim section, also which is not relevant. So I have mentioned here just for the sake of your information buildation. If you build up your information, you must aware, okay, that name is also. But never learn this one, the phylum Orthopoda and class Insecta. This one is not important, right? You not need to learn about the taxonomy about the insects. So yes, aware about the Sisha Hills also, because earlier it has been asked where it is. It's in Andhra Pradesh, southern part of Eastern Ghats. Part of Eastern Ghat, not Western Ghat, make sure. They will ask like recently in the news like Sisha Hills is found in Western Ghat. So that statement would be incorrect. So that's why I am suggesting to you that make sure that you read newspaper. But make sure do not try to give more than 2 and 2.5 hours maximum if the time allows. And now the prelims date has been announced that in June. And a notification also has been announced now. So okay, the minerals is found is here sandstone, shale and limestone. Unique places is here Tirupati temple like Tirumala hill, and flora is here red sandalwood. And 2010 it declared a part of biosphere reserve. So Sisha Hills is declared as a biosphere reserve in 2010. Okay, so here in the now map part, because map is playing very important role. As you can see is here in the map, here is the Eastern Ghat and here is the Western Ghat. So here is the Sisha Hills, which is located in, it's nearby. Here is Andhra Pradesh, here is Nellore, so here is Tirupati, so it's nearby that Sisha Hills. Anantpur is the near his. but you have to make such a short note like any famous river. So no any famous river is here passing through it, and here is we can say is on that part. So mapping part is also very important, because until unless if you are not aware about the where is a map and where it is located, because that map is important, but make sure that you do such kind of in your atlas you have purchased it. So that Oxford Atlas, make if the any famous places in the news or such kind of hills is in the news, make sure that try to find it yourself, because I have done this one for you, but until and unless you will not yourself, you will forget in the exam, right? सो जब तक आप खुद से करेंगे तो वो आपके ऊपर ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट होगा और देर तक आप इसे रिकॉल कर सकते हो सकता है एग्जाम आपको अगर मिस कर रहे हो तो माइट बी क्लास से भी आप रिकॉल कर सकते हैं, बट in that case it is very difficult for you that if you will not do it yourself. The mapping work, try to do it almost find it out 20 to 25 minutes every day for the mapping work. Not try to find okay prelims se pehle and you are memorizing all the facts and where is Red Sea, where is Black Sea, where is Mediterranean Sea. This is not the actual way to find it out or clearing the exam. Okay. Now here is next article is here, self-reliant pharma industry. So self-reliant pharma industry. So basically this section is important for the terms of economy, GS paper 3rd and something like pharma industry. Okay. So while further moving, the pharmaceutical industry is a key sector of the Atmanirbhar Bharat program. As we are aware about, it has been announced in the time of pandemic. So Atmanirbhar Bharat program, the objective of the phase 1 is production link incentive, PLI scheme, right? So lots of questions has been asked earlier that based on PLI scheme, as you can quote in the essay section also. So production linked incentive scheme in this sector was to reduce import dependence on active pharmaceutical ingredients, that is API. What exactly this is? API is basically active pharmaceutical ingredients. Active pharmaceutical ingredients, drug intermediates which means DIs, and KSM which means key starting materials. So what exactly in our country, which means India needs a strategy, not just a scheme, to realize the objective of reducing import dependency. So we can create such kind of indigenous medicine or drugs so that it would be helpful for our country. So there are 3 areas where the PLI scheme, which means production link incentive, requires modification. So firms will invest in production in India. They see a prospect of producing at price cheaper than the cost of imports. So that should be a price that is cheaper than the cost of imports. Technology plays a very crucial role in reducing imports dependency as Indian producer. So we have to find such kind of AI tools through which that we can help it out and plays in the reducing imports dependency as the Indian producers. So as we can see, the firms will invest in production in India. They see a prospect of producing at price cheaper than the cost of import. So the strategy aimed at achieving self-reliance should focus on achieving price competency in the production in the market, that we need to see that in our competitor how and how much the price is to be implemented. So without appropriate technology like API, DI and KSM manufacturers in India will not be positioned to beat their Chinese counterparts at pricing. So if we will focusing on API, DI, KSM manufacturer, which we have discussed now, so we will not, we cannot counterpart in pricing. So this PLI scheme does not have a technology component. Permission to utilize existing but in operational or underutilized facility for production would have elicited a better response. The production linked incentive schemes remains a standalone measures. It is not connected to the other relevant policies. Basically in the large firms. So we have to understand that what exactly is active pharmaceutical ingredients, API. So what exactly is API? All drugs are made of two core components. All the drugs are made from the two core components, that is API, which is a central ingredients, and excipient is help deliver to medication. API and excipient. So the active pharmaceutical ingredients is a part of any drug that produces the intended effect. Some drugs such as combination therapies have multiple active ingredients. The excipients are chemically inactive substance such as lactose. Lactose was a part of excipients, and mineral oil in the pill. For example, here is API, which is stand for active pharmaceutical ingredients. The API in the Indian market are mainly used for the development of generic drugs. So API in the Indian market are mainly used for the development of generic drugs, and some of the common API in the Indian API market are clopidogrel, bisulfate, treatment of blood clots, atorvastatin reduce high cholesterol, amikocycline or albendazole, which means treat infection. So why we are lacking behind? So there are some areas where the PLI scheme requires modifications. Like firms will invest production in India, they see a prospect of production price cheaper than the cost of imports. That should be. So the strategy aimed at achieving self-reliance should focus on achieving price competency in production. So without appropriating the technology like API and DI, so manufacturers in India will not be in the position to beat their Chinese counterparts in pricing. So permission to utilize existing built in operation to utilize facilities. So if the PLI schemes remains a standalone measure, it is not connected to the other relevant policy measures such as industrial policy, MSME policy. Focus on PLI phase 1 such schemes, however, is on the large firms. So we are basically focusing on the generic drugs, which is a very low cost, and if we are going to be beat the Chinese counterparts, we have to focus in such kind of things. Okay. So without, like we can say, without appropriate technology, API, DI, KSM manufacturer, India will not be in the position to beat their Chinese counterparts. So nearly 3/4 the PLI schemes remains a standalone measure. So we can say that nearly 3/4 of the production of pharmaceutical in India is by MSME, medium sector micro enterprises, MSME. So historically, large private sector firms have been interested in formulation, not API. Why it's so? Because API is sold with their chemical names and without brandings. So if the larger economy of India, say if we are not promoting API with their chemical names only, without brandings, large firms have no interest in their productions. So that's why the MSME sector, or we can say because as we can see the data is here, 3/4 of the production of pharmaceutical in India is by MSME, not through the API. So that's why we are lagging behind. So we just need to manipulate this. Okay, so here is the country Sri Lanka launched its own Aadhaar. So in our country, suppose in Aadhaar is, so UPSC syllabus is here, IR, international relation. As you can see, Sri Lanka is to launch its own Aadhaar. So India agrees to provide a grant to implement the digital identity framework. So sometimes this kind of keyword can ask, digital identity framework is related to what? Is related to artificial intelligence, is related to Aadhaar card, is related to PAN card, such kind of questions. If you can look it very carefully, in the earlier section it has been asked also. So make sure that, like here it has mentioned, like digital identity framework is related to what? So India has agreed to provide a grant Sri Lanka to implement a unitary Unitary Digital Identity Framework, UDIF. So make sure like UDIF. So which is Unitary Digital Identity Framework, apparently modeled on the Aadhaar card. Under the proposed Unitary Digital Identity Framework is expected to introduce a personal identity verification device based on biometric data, a digital tool that can be represented in the identities of individuals. In cyberspace, and the identification of individuals' identity that can be accurately verified. And this is not the first time that Sri Lanka is attempting to digitalize its citizens' identity. It was earlier, it has to be attempt to do this. So just a few years ago, the precedence is mentioned here, this one, in that administration, you do not need to recall this one name, they will not ask it in your exam. So identity, national identity card on ENIC, the privacy advocates proposed to ground that a state would have full access to citizens' personal data in a central database.